So in this video, we're going to be talking about how we even get into lathe turning. You might already be a woodworker yourself, thinking about getting into it. So what lathe do you buy? What tools do you buy? What equipment do you need? And what projects do you want to start with to get your lathe journey started? What is the lathe? What one do I buy? How much do I spend? What am I doing? The main things you want to look at is your budget itself and the lathe size that you want to start with and the space capacity you have. Now, this is a very specialized tool. All it does is turn cylinders. So I started with a little record benchtop lathe. Now those are considerably smaller, considerably less powerful, but considerably more convenient. I still have that lathe. It still works great. I currently have it in my shed at home, not in the warehouse shed that we are currently standing in. So should you even be looking at getting a variable speed lathe like one of these, or should you just stick with one where you manually change the speed? If you are planning at just staying with a small one and it's just going to stay a hobby forever and you're just going to be turning a few things here and there, friends and family, and maybe even potentially going to markets to show, potentially do lathe work there, then I would say get a variable speed lathe. If you're planning to upgrade, if you really get into the hobby and you want to turn really big stuff, then I would say start with one that you just have to manually change the speeds on. Now this one is a variable speed and you can turn really big stuff on it, but my original one, this bowl here was the biggest thing I could turn on it. It was basically hitting at the edges when turning. Now as you can also see, there's a hole in the middle of it. That wasn't intended, but that's what ended up happening with this bowl. Okay, so now that you have decided on which lathe you're gonna get, let's go over to the tool side of it, deciding on what tools you need to buy, deciding on what tools are nice to have, and then we'll get into seeing how you use to sharpen some of these tools. On the bench, we have a bunch of the tools that I use for my lathe. So here I have a live center kit that has a couple different things in it. Came with a live center, a couple different points, one of these which is to hold in a pen mandrel. I got started out with pen turning, so I obviously got a pen mandrel. Now this adjustable one is very nice. It basically just allows you to change the size, so if you're doing something that doesn't need the full length of the mandrel itself, you don't have to use the full length and pack it out with bushings. The thing you have to worry about with mandrels is the inner metal rod does eventually warp a little bit and you'll end up turning a little bit off center. So making sure you can buy rods for them. I have about 2 or 3 extras just sitting in my drawer. Make sure you keep them nice and safe because you don't want to put them on and they're immediately bent. So another thing for a lot of lathes is you're going to need a drill center. It basically just allows you to chuck up a drill bit, plunge it into your wood, and drill a hole in the center of your material. Now, let me run over the actual chisels themselves, and then I'll give you some ideas of what you can turn with those tools. The first one is the roughing gouge. It basically just allows you to roughly turn square stock into round stock. This would be a good thing for if you're going to markets and say you want to turn spin tops and you want to demonstrate turning spin tops all day. That would be a good thing to get your square stock into nice easy round stock. The next one would be a spindle gouge. So this one basically is for very fine detail work if you're making spindles for like chairs, boxes, bed frames, things like that where you need a lot of coves and beads. You don't want to use this for doing very heavy cuts. This is a very fine cut tool. It's a lot of rattle when you're using the tool. It can also be used for pen turning. A lot of pen turners use spindle gouges. But to what I actually use for pen turning, and that's a bowl gouge. Now obviously, the name, you can also use it to turn bowls. Now there's different ways to sharpen these tools to give you different cutting styles. I'm not going to get into that in this video. That's going to be an entirely different topic. But this allows you to basically take rougher cuts. There's a lot more stock. These tend to be the biggest turning tool that you can buy so that you have a lot of nice and firm and stable positioning when you're using the lathe itself. The next big tools that a lot of people like to use are parting tools. There's 2 different sizes. If you can see, there's a really thick one and a really thin one. Now I mainly use the thin one when I'm turning things that maybe I don't have a whole lot of waste stock to actually get rid of, and I need a lot of that material to stay good. So I'll use the thinner one. Coming into other scrapers. You can get lots of different shapes of scrapers. I only have round scrapers. So these I mainly use for smoothing out the inside of my bowls after the fact, and especially if I'm doing a really thin bowl wall, I will use this chunky one because it stays nice and stable. There's no vibration when I'm doing a very thin scrape cut. Makes it nice and easy to get good results. So the last tool is a skew chisel. Now I'll tell you what I use it for. I use mine for when I'm pen turning, to do that last little bit of scraping, just to make sure that it stays nice and consistent over the whole pen before I start sanding. These, you can even add detailing with these. It's a very versatile tool. You have the chisels, you've got to sharpen them some way. If you don't already have a grinder or something that you can buy accessories for, I seriously recommend the Roberts Sherby sander. I use this for a lot of different things. I use it to sharpen the tools. I use it to sand the very little bit off the pen blanks. I use it for so many different things. I really recommend this tool, and you can just rebuy the belt. It's basically a belt grinder. Let's zoom back out and let's talk about the material you want to buy and what projects you can actually turn on the lathe. Obviously, you have bowls, you can turn vases, you can turn any cylindrical holding device. Now, one of the main projects that people really get into turning for is pen turning, or anything that's a really small little gift that is easy to manufacture. My top drawer of this whole rolly cart is small wood blanks that I can cut down to any length to basically create pens, razor handles. So if you are looking for these project kits as well, in Australia, I mainly go to Pop Shed, and that's just because of the price, and also the people there have been really nice. I've ordered some things off there before, and this is no fault of theirs, it's the manufacturing problem. There was a bit of fit up issues with the pen kits themselves, and they sent me stuff to basically fix that issue. You can buy pen blanks as a stock like this. It's just a more expensive way to do it. They typically cost anywhere from $3 to $7 depending on the species. Now I can buy a whole chunk of mahogany or ebony or anything for a more upfront cost, but then they work out to be a cheaper pen blank because you can work out how big a pen blank's gonna be. Okay, so I've now finished talking about everything that you might need and want for starting the new hobby of lathe turning. If you did really enjoy the video, or if you found anything interesting or insightful, please like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. I'd love to see you guys come back around and watch again. But until next time, I'll see ya when I see ya.